So I'm going to start the video now. And if you would, tell me a little bit more about yourself and why you'd like to be a PA.
So a little bit about myself. I've now been working in healthcare for about 6 years, almost 6 years. I've accrued up to over 10,000 hours of paid healthcare experience. I'm pretty well rounded. I've worked as a phlebotomist for 3 years. 2 of those years I was a phlebotomy preceptor where I was training new hires. Following that, I started working as a medical assistant for a fellowship trained Mohs surgeon in surgical dermatology. So I was with her. I was assisting with a lot of surgical assisting, Mohs map preparation, wound care, all sorts of hands-on procedures. And then from there, I transitioned to working in orthopedic surgery. So I've been working as a lead medical assistant for an orthopedic surgeon for the past 8 months now. So I've gained quite a bit of experience. In all of that experience, I've picked up quite a bit, learned a lot about myself. I've learned that patient care is probably one of the best things that I've experienced. I love working with the public. I love helping. I love basically being involved in the care of patients, and kind of seeing their reward and satisfaction at the end of their treatment. It pretty much snowballed to me becoming a PA, to wanting to become a PA from all of my experience in healthcare. I've shadowed, plenty of doctors and nurse practitioners, physician assistants, and picked and choose kind of the qualities of each of their lines of work that have really, fit and matched with my personality. And it was during the 2 years of being a medical assistant at the dermatology practice that I worked very closely and intimately with a PA, Lucy, there, who was kind of my mentor. So I worked, almost as her shadow for 2 years. I got to learn her roles and responsibilities, her capabilities as a PA, how she works with the physician, and pretty much got to see the amazing qualities of her profession as a PA. She's very family oriented. She has plenty of time to spend with her kids, her husband. She makes a great salary. Her patients love her, and she gets perform surgeries and assess patients. So here I am today, interested in becoming a physician assistant as the end result of my 6 years of experience in the healthcare field.
Awesome. You did a really nice job on that. I think the way you explain your experience and how it's evolved, I especially love that you put in leadership roles in each of your positions, actually, which was great. You emphasized some really nice points in terms of what you like about the work that you do. That's not something that people always remember to include in their answers, and that's a really strong point. Particularly, you emphasize working with the public, which is a great aspect to bring up, because really, I think keeping the patient central to all of the reasons that you'd like to become a PA is really important during these interviews. And then discussing that you work closely with a PA, that she was your mentor. It's a really nice thing to show that for 2 years you worked very closely with a PA and you know what their responsibilities are, you understand the job. Reiterating, I think, what you liked about her role and how she was able to balance the personal and professional responsibilities were awesome. The only thing I can think maybe that you might want to emphasize more is your personal background.
Okay.
There wasn't a whole lot of information about you outside of your work and what you'd like to do as a PA. That's not a terrible thing, but it's you could give them a couple more details on where you come from and what your background is, just in order to cement yourself in their mind as give them some details to hang on to.
Mm-hmm.
Sound good?
Yeah, it was an interesting question that you asked, because that was kind of 2 questions that I prepared for mixed into one.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about yourself, but you're like, tell me a little bit about yourself and why you want to be a PA.
Yeah, so, I know.
It's overshot and didn't do the about myself, but I can do that briefly if you'd like.
It's up to you. If you want to practice it, sure.
Yeah. So I just turned 28. I currently live in Hollywood, California, which I've been here for about 6 months now. It's pretty, interesting living in the big city. Before that, I lived in Santa Barbara for the past almost 7 years, living and working in Santa Barbara. And then before that, where I'm from is up in Chico in Northern California, where, my parents and my sister still live. Chico's a very small town. It has Chico State, famous for being a party school. So some people know about Chico State, but anyways, Chico's really small, really friendly, very naturey, lots of trees. So I'm a pretty avid outdoor adventurer. I like to go backpacking and camping and, kind of risk my life on the weekend sometimes with my friends. So, I've done all sorts of crazy excursions, but yeah, that's, pretty much that. And then, I've been with my girlfriend for 3 years. It's going amazing. And, I just look forward to kind of the next step of both of our lives, hopefully me getting into PA school and, kind of moving on with my career.
Great. Yeah, that's nice. I like that. I think I like that touch of humor in there too, about risking your life. It's nice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that you touched on, when you said you live in Hollywood, I was like, man, I bet that's an interesting experience. And you immediately were like, it's a little bit crazy. It's good to have that craziness, because I imagine you see a lot of interesting things there. So that's very cool. Yeah. And I had forgotten that you're from Chico. I think we had talked about that because my husband's from Fresno and he has family in Chico. So yeah, I'm glad you reminded me. Cool. I think you did really nicely. So I know I kind of phrase that question like that to throw candidates for a loop, because usually they have practiced and memorized their answers a little bit. So, but you did well. You did nicely with both. So good job. Tell me, if you would, what you think will make you an ideal candidate for PA school.
Let's see. So I would say that my personal qualities make me a great candidate for PA school and, for becoming a PA. I am a fairly empathetic person. I can, put myself in other people's shoes almost a little too well. So when, the patients come in, they tell me what their issues are, because I do a lot of patient intake for, my past medical jobs. And, I really feel for them, and I really want, the best care that they can give. And luckily I've worked for two, incredible surgeons who are, both actually renowned for their abilities. So I would say that, it's my compassion, my empathy, my passion for medicine, for science, my other passion for patient care. I've been in patient care for 6 years, and I couldn't really imagine working in a different field. And other personal qualities. I'm a pretty logical person. I'm very good at, complex problem solving, which I think would really would apply nicely to, the didactic and clinical portions of the PA program. I'm interested in science. As you can see, I actually worked in a genetics research lab while at UCSB. So, I kind of have I believe the intellect that it would require for your program, because of its rigorous, rigorous and, difficult nature. But really, it really does come down to just the fact that I am very passionate about patient care, and, that, and just kind of the endless learning that I would have as a physician assistant, being able to switch from specialty to specialty, which I've kind of done already in my, experience as a medical assistant and phlebotomist. So, I mean, the PA profession has really kind of drawn me to it because of how well it meshes with my personality type.
Awesome. I think that's great. Everything that you mentioned, I think, is really good. So I won't waste your time talking about all of the things that you did well, because I think if you've gotten feedback on that already, you're probably in good shape. Unless you want me to, I'm happy to do it if you want it.
There's to improve, because I'm not gonna lie, all of your questions and all of my answers, they're completely different than how I prepared. So as long as they're flowing together well, then that's great.
Yeah, no, you're doing really well.
Okay.
Yeah, you sound great. The only thing I would add to this is discussing your personal qualities is really nice. And I do want to actually touch on what I think you did that was outstanding in this part was you mentioned that you may almost even be too empathetic with patients. I think that's a really beautiful thing to say, actually, and it shows a lot about you. You might be prepared to get a follow-up question for how you handle that if you get so emotionally invested in patients. I'm not going to follow up with it, but you might just be prepared with that. The other thing I think that you might want to address a little bit is your academic ability. You touched on it, but not very much. So since we're talking about PA school, you might just mention that a little bit more, and how your experience in the medical field will tie into helping you as a PA student.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was one other thing. Oh, you might also mention something about working in a group, how you feel about working in a team, so that you can talk about supporting your or your fellow students, that kind of thing, supporting each other. Those are just things that I usually think are nice to mention for a question that involves PA school as well as being a PA.
Mm-hmm.
Make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, great. Okay, you ready for the 60-second timed questions?
Yes.
All right.
By the way, do these exist?
Do these
exist? Will they like, you have 60 seconds to answer this question?
Yeah. Wait,
okay.
I'm confused. Sorry, what?
In a real PA school interview, will they say? Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, the time length varies, but yeah, you can definitely get some timed questions. So I want to give you some practice with that. I'm sorry, I was confused about how you were phrasing that.
No problem.
No, that's good. Good to know. So I'll ask the question. I'll start the time as soon as you start talking, and then I'll hold my hand up like that if you get close to the time length, but feel free to wrap your answer up. You don't have to just shut yourself down.
Okay. All
right, ready? Okay, we'll talk about, can you tell me about one of your weaknesses?
Yeah. In preparing for this interview, I've realized that thinking back, one of my weaknesses is learning to rely on someone. I find that whenever I'm, in a team-based setting and I'm, working with a new teammate where I haven't quite seen or they haven't proven their abilities yet to where I can trust them, what ultimately happens is I actually kind of pick up their slack and add their work to my workload instead of asking for them to help. But things that I've done to kind of counteract this is, in my preceptorships where I am training new staff, is that I'm, constantly bettering training protocols and, making things more efficient for them to be able to get up to speed quicker. But then, of course, once somebody's up to speed, it's, a kind of an exponential growth as far as teamwork goes. And, you can work almost as a mirror image with somebody who's on the same page as you.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. That was a really, really strong answer. I was concerned at first because learning to rely on others as a broad statement might be a problem, like a red flag PA profession, but the way you narrowed it down to people that you're not used to working with, newer employees, I guess, people you maybe haven't experienced working with, you don't know their style. That's a great way of putting that. Because it's a very specific situation that will have an end point probably. And I think that you explained it really well in terms of especially bringing in how you've dealt with it in the past in your leadership roles. It just reminds us you have had leadership roles, you've had experience, you are aware of doing this, and you've taken steps to correct it. And it's not even a hypothetical, it's that you've actually done it. So I think that's a very, very good response.
Cool, thank you.
And it was a great time length too. You did really
that worked out well.
Yeah. Tell me about what your least favorite class in college was and why.
Oh gosh. I would say that my least favorite class, of course, is something that didn't really involve science or medicine or biology. And I would say that it was my history class back my freshman year of college. History was always interesting to me, but, once I became interested in science, biology, anatomy, physiology, all that, everything else kind of lost a lot more of my focus. So the history class, when I finally picked up into sciences, was really kind of, grind nails on the chalkboard for what I wanted to learn. It was just not something I was interested in. That, and the professor was not as enthusiastic as I would like in a class that I'm not that interested in the first place.
Makes sense. So I think the answer was great up until the part with the professor. I
Mhm.
think you'll probably want to leave that out just because the
Okay.
this question and most questions that are asking you about your least favorite this or that,
Mhm.
really, do you approach a situation positively or negatively? Um,
Mm.
so you really did a nice job of focusing that on yourself and why you gave good reasons for why it wasn't as riveting, I guess, as some of the other things that or the other courses you were taking. Those all made perfect sense. Um,
Okay.
I'm sure you're right about the professor. I'm totally sure you're right. I had professors like that too, but it's
Mhm.
probably best not to mention it and just stick with what's about you and how you handle it.
Yeah, pretty much stay away from negatives, right?
Yep, I would say so. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice job though. That was a good answer.
That was good.
You
Cool.
were going to say something like, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I said that's cool. I haven't heard that question yet.
Oh, really? Oh, well, you did
Yeah.
really well. You're doing really well. Even if you've rehearsed these responses, it doesn't sound rehearsed at all. So, yeah.
My responses are completely like free form right now.
Awesome.
So,
Well, that's good. That's the way it should be, in my opinion.
okay, good.
It's a lot better. um, okay. There's a push right now to change the title from physician assistant to physician associate. What are your thoughts on that?
um, Well, I do believe that it is something that, would make a lot of people happier and content with their jobs. There are a lot of other things about the PA profession that I think could use change. Um, but what I have learned in my personal experience is that the word assistant actually does occasionally lead a patient to kind of undermining the role of a PA, both their abilities, their training, and their role in the healthcare field. The word associate so similar, but it doesn't quite have that same stigma. So I would say that it's a harmless transition from assistant to associate. I don't really understand why there is opposition to it, other than certain other professions feeling threatened by somewhat of an upgrade of a title. But other than that, I think that it'd be cool. It would definitely be a great change for the profession.
Okay. Um, so I think that's good. It's a good start. I was a little thrown in the beginning because you said you thought that there were other things to be more focused on, but then you
Hmm.
transitioned right into, but you think it's a great idea. So it
Hmm.
felt a little disparate to me. Not in a bad way, just a little jarring, I guess, in subject.
Okay.
Um, on the other hand, though, I think you make a good case for why it's a good change to make. You might want to show a little more understanding of the opposite point of view,
Hmm.
like maybe destabilizing the profession. People already aren't quite certain what a physician assistant is. So if you change the profession's name, are you going to be, upsetting that even more? Those kind of things. So you
Okay.
show a little more understanding of that. And then I think it's fine if you choose a side. In my opinion, I know some people will advise you not to, but I think you're probably safe unless the school you're interviewing with has a specific standpoint on it.
Okay. So then so basically kind of take the other person's point, the opposition's point of view, and then maybe be indifferent.
No, I think
I
it
mean,
could be indifferent if you wanted to. I have people answer that question by saying, they're really more invested in the work that they're doing. They're not that interested in what they're called. So you could
that
say, is that how you?
yeah, that's more along what I believe.
Yeah, I think you could phrase it that way and be
Okay.
just fine. As long as you show good understanding of the issue and why people who are concerned with it are concerned with it.
Okay.
I think it's nice to kind
Cool.
of show both sides.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, good deal. Okay, last timed answer. I actually was so caught up in what you're saying, I have no idea what the time length of your answer was on that one, but it seemed short enough.
I think it was a minute.
Okay, good. Um, Tell me one thing about you that I won't find anywhere in your application.
Um, I'm glad you asked because it is something kind of cool about where I work right now. So the orthopedic surgeon that I work for, he's kind of a high profile surgeon where he treats VIPs, celebrities, politicians, athletes, pretty much anybody you'd see on a billboard or Super Bowl game or NBA championship, people like that. And I actually I'm on call. So I can get a call at like 1 or 2 in the morning with, from my doctor. He'll say, hey, we got to go see Prince so-and-so out at the so-and-so hotel. And, I pack up my bags, get my scrubs on and get out there and, we'll do an assessment. And, from there, depending on what he needs, I will then, kind of need to assemble medical teams or technicians, ultrasound techs, whoever it may be that, we kind of do concierge, facilitative care. So he's an orthopedic surgeon, but he also works almost like an internist.
Nice. That's a really good response to that question, because it's super interesting, very different. Hardly anyone is going to answer in that way. So nice. That's a good response to that. I also thought it was cool that you said, "I'm glad you asked," because no one has ever said that to me. So that's nice.
Oh. Well, because it is a very unique, weird thing that I do for this doctor and the clients that we see. It's not kind of an everyday thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not really appropriate anywhere else in my application to include that information. So
yeah, no, it's really neat. That's very cool. Those kind of answers that are really specific to you, unique to you, I think they're great to include when you can, because it's going to ground your application in the interviewer's minds just a little bit more, and link them directly to you and who you are, which I think is always good. Okay, ready to transition into straight and untimed answers.
Let's do it.
At least. I'm going to take a drink too, really.
Do they allow water bottles during the interview?
I would hope so.
Me too.
Tell me what you think is going to be your biggest challenge in PA school.
Gosh, I would say that my biggest challenge would likely be just dealing with the rigorous didactic and clinical portions of the program. It's definitely a very serious program. It's stressed almost anywhere you read about PA school is that it's 2 years of a pretty hardcore regimen of education. So I do know that from my but my education at UCSB, very top-notch school with a very rigorous curriculum, that I would likely be very well prepared for what's to come in the PA program. Maybe that, and during clinicals, dealing with patients actually losing their lives, or really kind of going through the first experiences of the real world of medicine as a provider. I'd say those two things would probably be the hardest for me.
How do you feel you would adjust to seeing a patient lose their lives or their life?
Well, I have actually witnessed a patient die before. He, but it was very, very gentle, and, he kind of just, died almost right in front of us, almost as if he was asleep. So that was, definitely a shock when I learned that he had passed. In the setting, I'm imagining somewhat of like an emergency room situation, which I've actually done a lot of shadowing in. Haven't seen anyone die yet, but I would say that it would definitely be an adjustment, something that I would have to kind of reconcile with afterwards. But it is also something that I'm completely aware of I'll be experiencing in my work. So I would, be affected by it at first, but I would definitely be able to overcome that and realize that, it's a learning experience each time that something like that happens.
Mm-hmm. Good. I think that's a really nice response. I love how you came back from talking about the rigor of the program. You were automatically able to say, you went through a very rigorous undergraduate program. So I think that is a nice way of saying, you feel prepared for that. I can't think of anything to add to that, really. I think you did well. The only thing I wanted to kind of give you an opportunity to practice you opened the door a little bit for the losing patients' lives question to be asked. So I wanted to go ahead and kind of follow up what you thought about that. But overall, great job.
What I did, a little tip that I learned from Al, the PA from the admissions board, mm-hmm. He said anytime that there is kind of a follow-up question, it's typically a good thing, unless they're asking for clarification. He says that it's kind of like it opens a door to a conversation.
Mhm.
and you want to try and drag that conversation out as much as you can, because it really shows you as a person and kind of gives you that dialogue that you would not normally otherwise get to display.
Yeah.
So, would you say that after your follow-up question, I would say, like, do you find that you have any students who, struggle with that aspect of your program? And
Mhm.
then, so, okay, I can ask a question after they ask me a question.
I think it would be great. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, great. Awesome.
Read their response. If they seem engaged with your question, then yeah, I'd go
Mhm.
forward with that if as much as you can. If they seem put off by it, then pull back. But
Yeah,
seems seems awesome to me. I think that's a
cool.
great tip he gave you. Um, what would you do if a patient refused to be seen by you because you are a PA and not the physician?
I mean, I've seen this countless times. Kind of goes with the profession. You just simply say, "Oh, I completely understand. Let me see what I can do to have the physician come in. If the physician's not able to, then of course we would be happy to reschedule you, so that you can come back and get the evaluation that you need. And for future reference, we can always clarify that your visits will be with the physician and not the PA." And just very nonchalant and polite. I mean, it's just such a common occurrence. I've seen it so many times. It's just, you're like, okay, no problem. Just you'll see the doctor.
Yeah,
Not gonna not gonna get offended.
yeah, nice. I think that's great. I think your emphasis on uh, rescheduling for the patient and even following up and saying for future reference, we'll make sure to note that you see, the physician. I think that's an awesome approach. You might throw the word respect for the patient's wishes, talk about that kind of thing. Patients always, it's ultimately their choice. You could throw those words in there
Hmm.
specifically, but I think you did a great job.
Cool.
Yeah, some people talk about, maybe gently educating the patient on your qualifications. I think it's up to you. You could, if you wanted, you could be,
Yeah, I guess you could read at that point. You read the patient if
yeah,
they're really opposed to seeing you, and they're like, I want to see. I mean, yeah, it comes from my experience. Just the majority of patients who ask to see the doctor, you're pretty much not going to talk them out of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
that makes perfect sense. And the way you explained that to me, um, you spoke with such confidence and such, I guess, authority. You knew what you were saying when you answered that question. So to me, your experience came through very well on that
Cool.
question. Yeah, nice job. Can you tell me what patient population you least like working with?
Hmm. That's a great question. Patient population. I would say that there's not really a specific population that I dislike working with. I would say that there's more of a type of patient that I would dislike working with, and of course, that's going to be, the uncooperative, disgruntled, upset patient. But my one of my strengths about, me as a person and me in the medical field is that I'm likely able to kind of diffuse those types of patients. I can get them down to back to kind of a fresh start, and you know sympathize with them and kind of clean up all the mess that was going on, the reason why they're upset, and then kind of then facilitate how can we help you. So yeah, I couldn't say that there's not a specific population that I don't like, because I've seen everyone. Everybody's a person. I don't know. I wouldn't say that I could discriminate like that.
Hmm. Good job. I think that's a great response. I like how you worded that. And then talking about, people who are just more difficult to deal with. There are individuals like that in every group, right? So that's a perfect way of phrasing that in my mind. And I think throwing in that you're good at diffusing those type of tense situations is a great approach as well. So yeah,
Cool.
yeah,
The way that I've rerouted your questions a few times, because that question is a little loaded, isn't it?
right, yeah.
Okay, there's going to be loaded questions like that,
Hmm.
and you're supposed to go around them like that. Okay.
Well, yeah, you're supposed to. People don't always. So it's a gauge. Some people will tell you. So then it's up to me to kind of help them reroute.
Got
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Good job on your own of doing that. Yeah. Tell me about a time when you had to work with a supervisor that you had a disagreement or differences with.
Oh boy. Well, when I was a phlebotomist, I worked at a large private lab, and my supervisor, she was, a little abrasive, not just to me, but just kind of to the staff in general. But I mean, you're going to experience people like this in all parts of life, and especially when you're working with someone who's not only your coworker but your boss. You just need to be professional. And with her, I did my job. I did everything that was asked of me. I kept interactions to a minimum just to, not instigate any issues. And eventually at the end of it, I kind of, in a good way, killed her with kindness, kind of won her over at the end, just because I never really fed into any negativity that was there.
Great. Great. I think that's a great approach. It's not a very specific answer, but I think that it's fine because it's sort of an ongoing situation. You're really reacting to a personality trait rather than an actual specific event, right?
Mm-hmm.
To me, it seems fine. I think the aspect of not feeding into the negativity and really killing her with kindness is it's a nice way of showing your approach to difficult patients, and it aligns well with your patient population answer as well, how you are good at diffusing tensions like that. So makes sense.
Cool.
Um,
What would you say if, I mean, that example you said wasn't specific enough, or?
oh no, I don't think it's not specific enough. It's you're talking really about a personality trait, so it's not something that's one specific incident. It's
Mhm.
something that's an ongoing situation. So if you had talked about there was a time when your boss criticized you for something particular and you had to go back and kind of you could explain a situation directly like that and get into a little bit more detail in terms of how you would handle that type of conflict. So if you had a situation like that, you could maybe offer a little bit more detail. But your answer was okay. I mean, there was nothing wrong with it at all.
Okay.
Yeah,
For lesser impactful questions like that one, pretty much just like don't blow the answer, and that's fine.
I think
I
so.
mean, it's going to be rare to be able to like really make a amazing stance on a question like that. Is that right?
It just depends. I mean, some
Okay.
people have really dynamic scenarios that they describe.
Oh,
So yeah, some people can really show like I had to really stand up for my patients, stand up for, something like that. I had for
okay.
example, someone's physician was asking them to bill a patient for something that they hadn't actually done. So it was
Oh
an
my,
ethical dilemma. So those kinds of responses are actually pretty impactful. Um,
okay.
yeah,
Ethical dilemma.
yeah, things like
Okay.
that. But there's nothing, yeah, definitely you have the right approach for your response. If you wanted to take it a step further, you could think about maybe specific situations, but
Okay.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah. Um, all right, so let's talk a little bit about the program that you're going to interview with. Um, Tell me, if you would, why you feel that program is right for you and why you're the right fit for the program.
Well, after doing, plenty of research on your program, I've learned that your mission statement and my goals as a PA are pretty much aligned. Um, you are trying to train exceptional PAs that can give back to underserved communities, but you're also trying to train PAs that will also give back to the PA profession. Um, I mean, since I've been involved with community service, I've been involved with the Greeks for Kids organization, kind of a charity where my friend Carl actually started it up, and we, raised thousands of dollars for Boys and Girls Club, for small preschools around Santa Barbara County, and then also I've been involved with the Greater West Hollywood Soup Coalition, where me and my girlfriend have been, doing dinner service. So I love, community service, and it's almost selfish for me because of how much I enjoy doing it. Um, it's like you kind of take credit for giving people things. I don't know. It's just like I really enjoy it, so it's kind of a guilty pleasure. So giving back to the community would be awesome. And then as giving back to the PA profession, I would say that my long history of, teaching and preceptorship, when I was younger, I taught ballroom dancing to kids. I taught yo-yo lessons, believe it or not, at one of my old jobs. On Saturdays, I teach them yo-yo tricks. And, I was also a varsity assistant coach for the women's varsity team at my high school. So I have, and all of my preceptorships at, my previous medical jobs. I just kind of have this knack for teaching, mentorship. So I would say that once I'm a well-established physician assistant, comfortable in my practice and my trade, that, I could eventually start giving back, either, mentoring or assuming some sort of leadership position. Just like, you guys are now. You guys are, teaching at a PA school, which would be a pretty cool experience. I always thought that actually, if I were to not get into medicine, that I could always be a teacher. So for your program, there's that. Also, I really like about your program, I like the interdisciplinary learning model, where you actually have your optometry students, your PA students, and your pharmacy students work together collaboratively on case studies, which teaches each other it teaches each other how to utilize each discipline to create a better healthcare plan for the patient. I've heard plenty of times from PAs and physicians in my shadowing experience that they wish they had they wish they had that type of experience during their training, where doctors come out of med school not really knowing how to utilize PAs coming out of PA school not really knowing how to utilize, pharmacists or other disciplines. So I think that would really give me an advantage as a PA to work more effectively as a healthcare team. Those are, two pretty strong ones. And then, of course, the last one is that your first attempt board certification pass rate is 100% and has been ever since you started your program. So, I would be coming out of your program feeling pretty confident that I'm not only going to pass my boards, but that I would be very well prepared for the real world of being a PA.
Fantastic. Really specific. Nice job. Great details in terms of what you know about the program. That comes through really well. So yeah, I think that's great. You could probably add a little bit more detail on how you might be a good fit with that particular program.
Okay.
One way you might be able to do that is talk about, you were talking about being a teacher, that kind of thing. You might think about, I don't know if you are aware of some way that might be currently used as a student in your program. I'm not sure if there are organizations on campus, things like that you might be able to be a part of.
Okay.
That you could meld that in with, or even you could talk about after you finish school, trying to involve yourself in the program and continue as a source of support.
Okay.
In some way. So I think there's some opportunity there for you to show that you're willing to continue to invest yourself in the program specifically.
Got it. Okay. That's a really good point. And I do have examples that I can pull from. I follow a few PA students through like social media, and they're like currently in PA school, and they're kind of giving tips and advice for either pre-PA or PA students. So something like that I could touch on, I guess.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Yeah, good deal.
Cool.
All right. I'm just going to lay this out. Here's the worst question I ask. I'm going to just say it like that, just to prep you for it. And that way, when you get this question, if you do in your actual interview, it's not going to seem like as big of a deal. It won't come as much of a smack in the face. So if you're not accepted into this program, what do you think the reason would be?
I would say that most likely the reason I didn't get accepted is because, I met most of the requirements, but simply someone was just more qualified than I was. I have not been interested in the PA profession since day one. So, if I were to have more time to prepare for pre-PA, to apply to your program, then I would be able to have more volunteer hours, a higher GPA, and just overall breadth of experience shadowing other PAs. More experience in different fields of healthcare. So I would say that I'm a pretty strong applicant, but of course there may always be someone stronger.
Good. I think you answered that really well. But I think you could tack on to the end of that statement. But that's something that you can continue to build.
Mhm.
You're always building your skills and your qualifications, and so you'll apply again in the next.
Yeah, I'll be a more strong applicant next cycle.
Yeah, good deal. You
Cool.
didn't let that throw you at all. I'm proud of you.
I mean, it was definitely. I haven't heard that question, so that was.
Yeah. It's the worst question. I hate answering it because we've had this nice, interview up till now, and I feel like it's just a big buzzkill.
It's definitely a buzzkill. It definitely kind of like weighs down on you because you visualize not getting in.
I know. I'm so sorry.
No, no. I mean, it's real. It's real.
Yeah, and I really want you. I think it's so much better if I'm the buzzkill than they're the buzzkill. So
Yeah.
now you can envision my happy face apologizing for it, and maybe it won't be so bad if you get that question in reality.
I'm sure they hate asking that question too.
They have to, because I'm just a mock interview, and I'm like, oh, it's the worst.
Yeah.
Okay, shake it off, right? Shake it off. Is that a song? I apologize if that's a pop song. I feel like it might be. Anyway.
What is Take It Off?
Shake it
Yeah.
off. Isn't that a song?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's do let's do two more questions if you've got time. Sound good?
Yeah. Got nothing but time.
How do you think the PA profession will change in the next 10 years?
Well, the way that the PA profession has been trending, I mean, it's pretty much at an exponential growth, not only by public awareness of the profession, but also the need for PAs, not just PAs, but NPs, mid-levels, as healthcare reform continues to reduce compensation for healthcare systems. The PA has been tried and tested as a very cost-effective and a very cost-effective resource. So I would expect that pretty much no matter what, the PA profession is just going to keep booming. There's a projection that I've read that from 2010 to 2020, there's expected to be about a 58% increase in PAs in the country, which of course is not going to nearly match that of the demand for providers in this already large deficit of primary care providers. They expect there to be, I believe, what was it? I think it's like a 36% increase in demand because of the aging population and the increase in population. So pretty much all around, there's going to be a greater need for PAs. So I think as a profession, we're going nowhere but up.
Awesome. Good job. Really great job. You could add a few more details if you wanted to, but I don't know that you really need to. I think you summarized it really well. You had some statistics in there too, which is always a nice touch. I mean, you could talk about maybe things like the number of schools growing as well, more training programs springing up. I don't know if it's necessary though. I think your answer was nice and strong. So yeah. All right, last question. Tell me about one time that you surprised yourself.
Oh gosh. Well, I definitely surprised myself last summer. I was up against quite a few crazy transitions. So last summer, my girlfriend graduated from UCSB and was moving back to her parents' house. We'd been together for 2 years, so I, didn't really want to do a long distance at that point. So my lease ended right around the same time. So I decided to move to LA to be closer to her. And what that entailed was me quitting my job, becoming homeless, finding a new job, finding a new house. And at the same time, I was enrolled in an online anatomy class and also an online human development class. So in that, I was crashing on my friend's couch. I applied for the first job I actually applied for is my current job now. I was contacted 30 minutes later. I had an interview 12 hours later. I got hired right on the spot at that point. I was still homeless, so then I was commuting to Beverly Hills from North Hollywood, which was not a fun drive. My third day of work, I got in a almost nearly fatal car accident. I did a head-on collision, totaled both cars. So then I am now homeless. I have a brand new job. I don't have a car. And I was also enrolled in school. I had to rent a car. I had to start, basically picking up my responsibilities as the lead medical assistant at my new job, while, juggling this complete swirl of responsibilities, having to find a new house. So then I found a new apartment and moved in, and, just in the span of like 2 weeks, I came out on top. I have an amazing job working for a very well-known surgeon, the very high quality of patient care that has opened up quite a few crazy experiences so far. I've landed with an amazing apartment, which is only about a 15-minute drive from my work. I got an A+ in my anatomy class, and I got an A in my human development class. So in the midst of chaos, I was still able to, get everything done that needed to be done. And, here I am today, and during that whole time, I was also working on my PA school application too. So I definitely surprised myself with that. I didn't just drop everything after all that.
Nice. And that's why I got that first philosophical essay from you, I'm guessing, was going through all of that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Huh,
Yeah.
very interesting.
That was right when that happened.
Yeah. I can't believe that about that car accident. I'm so glad you're okay. Were you hurt?
I was, pretty much unscathed, other than like the airbag kind of burned me a little bit. But the other guy, he had a very small fracture in his hand. So if you saw the pictures of the cars, we are both extremely lucky. So that, even when I went to work that day, like right after that,
Wow.
because it was, it was my brand new job. I was like, I can't just not go on my second or third day. So.
Oh man, that's amazing. Wow, I'm so glad that you're okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Crazy.
That's crazy, and that's a lot to go through, and come out in such a good position. So I'm glad it worked out so well, and it's good that you were able to kind of keep the faith and keep going with it. I think it's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that the whole time you were telling me that, I was like, this is making so much sense in terms of that first essay that I read of yours. So yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yep.
I think you did a great job. I think you overall throughout the entire interview, you're a good, strong communicator. You don't seem nervous. You come across as very confident and very qualified. I think you have really done a great job.
Wow, thank you very much. That's huge. So, I luckily do have a lot of real world experience to pull from. So I think that's kind of where a lot of my free form answers came from. But also I've been preparing, this is a packet of 20 pages of dense answers. So even though I haven't formulated them into, conversation, I guess it just came out right now. So it's only going to get better, but I'm glad that you said that I did well, because I wasn't actually expecting to do as well as I did just now, speaking with you for the first time.
Yeah, a really nice job.
So how would you say I compare it to others that you've interviewed?
Yeah, I think you're right at the top of the group for sure, I think.
Oh, well.
Especially in terms of how poised you are and how I'm not sure how to put it, your experience comes across very well. So it's something to do with, I'm not saying this right. You have a lot of background experience, right? And so where some people might be nervous about talking about their experience, or they may not have quite as much to back up their qualifications, you do have a lot to draw from. And I think more than anything, it seems like it comes across as just a very self-assured position, not cocky and not like that you know everything, but just that you know what you know.
Okay.
If that makes sense. And that's
Yeah.
it's a very strong position to be in. So the fact that you really don't seem nervous at all, you seem like you're ready to talk and you know what you want to say and you know why you're doing what you're doing. And I think that's a really huge thing in an interview.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I know that I typically, and one thing I was hesitant about was doing the mock interview with you because you kind of already know me a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of more comfortable with you as it is.
Yeah.
But I do tend to have kind of like a serious face.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that PA programs are kind of looking for the applicant who's, smiley and everything. So I tried to throw in as much, small little tidbits of humor when I can. Did that come across as like I'm actually kind of like a fun person at all?
Yeah, I think so. It was it definitely wasn't overshadowing or overpowering the rest of your conversation. But yeah, you didn't come across as like stiff or too serious to me.
Oh, great. Okay. That's what I want to avoid.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. And, you did a nice job of smiling in between times. So, throw that in, when it occurs to you and when it's appropriate, drop it in. But I think you're doing just fine.
Awesome.
And you had some good funny moments in there too about, risking your life on the weekend and that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. It shouldn't really be that funny, but you know what I mean? It was funny the way you said it.
It's not funny to my mom.
I'm sure it's not. If I were, no, it would not be funny to me at all. Yeah.
Cool. So the interview's over then, right?
Yeah, unless you have any other questions or anything I can help with.
I do have 3 questions. Just the questions because they're going to ask, do you have any questions?
Yep.
Let's see. So the 3 questions, the number 1 is, so I'm really attracted to your program because of the interdisciplinary learning model that you have where your, PA and pharmacist and optometry students work together. I've heard, from providers that they wish that they had this kind of experience. Have you heard any feedback from any of your alumni of any one of these 3 programs that they feel that they have somewhat of an advantage in the field, knowing how to better work with other disciplines or even the same disciplines that they worked with in their program?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one.
That's a great question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second one is,
let me say something really quickly. You might phrase that in terms of what feedback have you gotten from alumni, just to, instead of leading them down the, like, how have they told you it's been helpful?
Mm-hmm.
Ask them like, what's the feedback been?
What kind of feedback have you received?
Yeah. That opens the door a little bit more for them. They'll probably still tell you why it's helpful, but.
Okay, awesome. That's really good advice. The second question was, I noticed that, your first matriculating class was 27 students. And if I were to get into this upcoming matriculating class, it's a class size of 40 students. What prompted the increase in class size? Are you trying to give back to, are you trying to feed into the provider deficit, or, what I'm also still trying to formulate that question. So do you think that's even a good way to get in? Because it's a program specific question, but I don't know if it's strong. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I don't know either. I wouldn't tack on the are you trying to do this or that with it? Although that does soften the question in case they were to feel defensive about it. Because you don't want it to come across as sort of like a judgmental type of, smaller class sizes are better type of thing. So I'm not sure about that question. I think maybe,
It doesn't sound like it resonates with you very well.
no, I think it could be misinterpreted.
Okay.
Yeah, I
And
think
then,
maybe a
and
different.
then the other question, what sets your program apart from other programs?
Yeah,
Yeah.
fair enough. I think that's a good one.
Okay. All right. I'll try and come up with one other question. I was told that 3 is pretty much the max amount of questions that you would want to ask during that time. So I'll maybe just keep it down to 2. How much, the questions that you've asked me tonight do you have a cycling amount, or are those like, how did you get the questions that you just asked me? They're provided to you by the program that you work for, or?
No, I pulled them together with the PA that I work for. Basically,
Mhm.
I did a lot of research on the best questions, the strongest questions, the most popular questions,
Mhm.
and things, and I just picked a mix from the ones that I had culled basically. So you've got a mix of some that are the most popular, some that are the most challenging, some that are a little off the wall. I tried to just kind of give you
Cool.
a little sampling from across the board. But I have other questions if you needed them for some.
Yeah, if you could provide me that list of questions that you chose from, that way I can just kind of at least familiarize myself with them. Because I know that you definitely asked some really great questions, but I know that there's still some other ones that I haven't heard yet.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could just email me that list, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
I don't have all of them compiled. I'll email you the top.
Whatever,
Yeah,
whatever you got.
I'll email you the top ones I have. I have them in like 1,000 different places, but the ones that I tend to rely on in interviews, I'll email you those. Does that sound good?
Yeah, definitely. One final question. Feedback from your previous mock interviewees. Do you know how often they're accepted in, or
They're doing really well,
they're all
actually.
doing really well?
Yeah, I mean, I don't always hear back from everybody, but
Mhm.
I've heard from several, and they've gotten in or gotten additional interviews. But I've heard from several, and they've gotten in. They've done really well. I'm so proud, and it makes me so excited every time I hear that somebody.
Well, look at what I'm doing right now. It's because of your help with my personal statement.
You're too.
Also, you edited my supplemental for this school as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, it's for this school, huh?
yeah, the Marshall B. Ketchum.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
So I kind of owe it to you so far, and I honestly think that you are you're very knowledgeable about the whole thing. So I think I'm pretty happy that you got to help me with this. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Taylor. That's so nice. I really enjoyed working with you. I was telling my husband before we got on our call, I was like, this is the only client I've ever hung up on. And I'm so glad I get to talk to you in person.
Yeah. Okay, I gotta go. Click.
I have 10 seconds to edit this. And it was just such a fun experience. I mean, it was horribly stressful, and I know it was worse for you, but it was actually really fun to be in that last minute. Like,
Well, you nailed it. I mean, it sounds perfect. So, gosh, you're a miracle worker.
oh, I had good material to work with. That essay you sent me was good. So,
Cool.
yeah.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much. I will definitely let you know how it goes,
Okay.
and if all goes well, then you'll see me in PA school, and yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah,
So,
I think you're going to do really well. I got a good feeling about it for you.
oh, perfect. Thank you. All
Yeah.
right. So,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, have a great night. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, you too. Just so you know, I'll send you this link tonight. I'm going to let it upload and tuck my kids in, but then I'll send it to you.
Awesome. No rush.
Thanks. Take care.
Thanks,
Good
Sarah.
luck at the interview.
Oh, thank you so much. All right. Good night.
Good night.